But first this hour, it's the remarkable tale of a poor young man from Mexico who beat long odds to become a renowned brain surgeon. Dr. Alfredo Quiñones Hinojosa first came to this country as an undocumented illegal immigrant. He jumped a border fence on the day before his 19th birthday in 1987. When he came to this country, he spoke no English and didn't have a penny. So he took jobs picking cotton, painting, welding, all to pay for tuition at San Joaquin Delta Community College in Stockton, California. Quiñones Hinojosa would eventually learn English, become a U.S. citizen, and go on to Harvard. He eventually became head of brain tumor surgery at Johns Hopkins Hospital. His story is also getting the Hollywood treatment. Disney and actor Brad Pitt's Plan B production company are developing a movie called Dr. Q, a biopic based on this surgeon's incredible life. It will be based on his 2012 memoir, Becoming Dr. Q. Now, Dr. Q, as he's called, recently traded Johns Hopkins for Mayo Clinic. He just started a new position here in Jacksonville as the William J. and Charles H. Mayo Professor and Chairman of Neurologic Surgery. Dr. Alfredo Quiñones Hinojosa, Dr. Q, joins us now with his thoughts on medicine, the immigration debate, and the American dream. Dr. Q, good morning.
Melissa, what a great pleasure. With that introduction, I think anything that I say next is just going to go downhill.
No, not at all. And what are your questions and comments for Mayo Clinic's Dr. Q? Give us a call at 549-2937. That's 549-2937. Or go online to wjctnews.org/First Coast Connect. Email and tweet the show or weigh in on our Facebook page. And I think it's easy to see why Brad Pitt's movie production company is interested in making a movie out of your life. What a story. What a story.
Well, you know, I tell people that I know the movie, it's about me, but the reality is that really is not about me. It's about the American dream. It's about the people who have believed in me, the people, my parents, my wife, my children, my patients, my colleagues, most recently people like Gianrico Ferrugia, Christina Zorn, who believed that I could actually come here to the Mayo Clinic in Florida, an amazing place to be able to contribute something through my knowledge and my skills as a surgeon and my skills as a scientist. And I think that that's really what this movie is all about the power of never losing hope. And of course, there are some brushes with death here and there and some thrilling moments as far as what I do as a brain surgeon in the operating room. But at the end of the day, I am, as you can imagine, I am humbled by this opportunity to be part of American history.
It is a huge appointment for you and for Mayo Clinic. You are a world-class brain surgeon. You are an accomplished researcher. You were director of the Brain Tumor Stem Cell Lab at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. You have a mission to eradicate brain tumors. Where did that come from? How did that begin with you?
You know, Melissa, I talk about it in my book. When I was a young resident and I was trying to find my way in my identity, not only as a surgeon but as a scientist, I had an amazing experience with a young man. And I saw how this young man, who was the first one in his family to go to college, he was at UC Berkeley. He was the first one in his family to get an education, and he suddenly was attacked by this horrendous disease, which is cancer in the brain. And I saw how this disease tear this family apart and their hopes. And at the time, I didn't know exactly how this was going to play for me, how I was going to be able to contribute scientifically and surgically, but I decided that this was going to be part of who I was. And I wanted to, I identified with that young man because I was obviously an immigrant, the first one in my family to get an education. And I decided that whereas everybody else told me that this was not possible, that this was a disease that was never going to be able to be cured, that why would I waste my talents as a surgeon in studying this disease, and why wouldn't I do something else as a brain surgeon? I felt that this was an opportunity to give people hope. And then eventually and organically, everything began to fall into place until where I am today.
Wow. And where you are today is so impressive, and what an asset to our community. Certainly you coming here from Baltimore. Take us back, though, to your teen years. Your story, I think, has fascinated so many people, as you've outlined it in your memoir. You jumped a border fence the day before you turned 19 in the year 1987. What happened on that day?
Well, it's quite interesting. As you know, from that memoir, I was a very energetic young kid who got into a lot of trouble. My mom had a lot of difficulty keeping me in track and doing things. But I had a dream. You know, we grew up very poor in Mexico, and when the whole world was going through a bifurcation of classes and the rich were getting richer, the poor were getting poorer, this was in the late 70s, early 80s, I had a dream that I was going to try to make a little bit of money and just put food on the table of my parents. And by the age of 19, as you said eloquently in your introduction, I decided to come illegally to this country and to work as a migrant farm worker, undocumented. And that's exactly what I did in Fresno. And the first night, they cut me, actually. And
what do you mean they cut you?
Well, they actually, I hopped the fence and I didn't know that the INS was right in front of me, and they immediately cut this young kid.
Oh, they caught you. Sorry. Yeah.
Not they cut me like in surgery. They cut.
Right.
So they sent me back to Mexico, and I remember the very same night I was, back in Mexico as a young kid, and I had a choice to make whether I was going to be able to follow my dreams or give up. And the situation was tough in my family. We really didn't have a lot, not much, and it was difficult times, not a lot of food on the table, and I decided to try again. And I learned a very important lesson that is stayed with me forever about perseverance, which is the same lessons that I use today as a brain surgeon and as a scientist, to be honest with you.
So the second try, you came across the border illegally, didn't speak a word of English. You got a job as a migrant worker. You learned English. You went to college. You put yourself through college. How did you eventually gain your citizenship and go from there to Harvard?
Well, it was very straightforward. Right around the mid to late 80s, there was a legislation. There was an amnesty, but I didn't qualify through the amnesty. There was a special legislation through the Immigration Reform of California that was specifically designed for migrant farm workers to be able to get a working authorization that if you work hard and you pay some penalties, eventually became a temporary residency, and eventually I qualified for permanent residency. By this time, I was already at UC Berkeley. Then I get into Harvard Medical School, and then I qualify to become a U.S. citizen. That's exactly what happened in 1997 when I was very proud right there in Boston as I was a Harvard Medical student to be part of this beautiful nation.
That was a big day.
It was, after the birth of my children, it was one of the biggest days in my life.
And so I must now ask you, in this political season where chants of build a wall are heard at huge rallies for Republican nominee Donald Trump, as you watch that debate play out over our immigration system, what are your thoughts?
Well, this is what I tell people all the time. I spend my whole life trying to find a cure for brain cancer, and I am an expert on migration of cancer cells. I am not an expert on immigration. I have never claimed to. There are people who spend their whole lives trying to figure out this dilemma. But I do understand that the country is going through a difficult time. I do understand that we are going through a process, in a very necessary and democratic process, in which we're trying to understand how will we solve this problem of immigration. And I think that what is going to happen, I have faith on the democratic system as we go through the debates, as we speak and we talk among each other. I think that we will be able to find solutions. Through history, the United States has been proven that this country has been built on immigrants. And somewhere along the lines, if you look through history, we have gone through these up and downs as far as how we feel about immigrants. But at the end of the day, we always figure it out. I don't really have an opinion as to how to solve the problem, but I do know that it has to begin with building bridges, with communication. And as you know, I've been a number of years ago, I started a foundation, 501c3. We go around the world and doing missionary work for free. I bring some of the most amazing brain surgeons and physicians around the world for free. And we try to go around the world building bridges. And I think those bridges are not only intellectual, but also physical in nature, connecting people. And I think that through that process and through democratic process, I'm hoping that we'll be able to find a better solution to this extraordinary problem that we have today.
And if you're just tuning in right now, we're speaking with the renowned Dr. Q, Mayo Clinic's new chair of neurologic surgery. The world-renowned brain surgeon started out in this country as a penniless, undocumented immigrant from Mexico. What are your questions? What are your thoughts about Dr. Q, Mayo Clinic, the immigration debate? Get on the line now, 549-2937. To join us, Tracy is in Mandarin. Hi, Tracy. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. Good morning. It's such an honor to talk to the famous neurosurgeon. I was in the same shoes 46 years ago. I am a Jacksonville person. And every time I will send my application to Shands Teaching Hospital as a physician, it will be thrown, foreigner, female, no chance. Then I had thought, I have a background. I rotated to Tom Hopkins while doing GDMC residency. My brother is a Harvard professor. Nothing is wrong with me. My kids used to say, Ma, you speak funny English. So I drove to the department in Gainesville, and I came back with a fellowship thing in my hand and ended up becoming head of Shands Hospital as an allergist immunologist. So my message is, don't undermine yourself, be persistent, and they will recognize you that you are intelligent. And we are honored to have you in our town. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you very much, Tracy. I'm honored by your kind words.
Very nice. Lots of calls for Dr. Q. What are your thoughts? What are your comments at 549-2937? Denise on the Northwest side. Hi, Denise. Thanks for calling the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
And I'm excited this morning because I've heard some very positive things about you, Dr. Q. And I would like to know, since relocating to Jacksonville, how are you going to interact in our community with the at-risk youth as you have done in Maryland? And how can we get involved with you?
Thank you very much, my dear Tracy. Well, I tell you one thing. As you know, I did a lot of work in the community in Maryland. You said that yourself. I am extraordinarily excited about being part of this community. One of the challenges that I see every time that we are part of medicine is how to build bridges with the community. And what I do is very simple. I start with simple programs where I invite some of the children, early age, elementary school, middle school, high school, to come in and see me doing what I do. Not necessarily in brain surgery, of course, because that gets a little complex, but to come in and join us at Mayo through programs where I can give them a talk, where I can have a slice of pizza with them, where I can show them a few videos of what I do. And that immediately begins to build bridges between our community of physicians and our community here in Jacksonville. And that's exactly what I'm planning to do. And obviously this is fully supported by the Mayo Clinic, which they have been extraordinarily active over the years in doing this type of work. And I'm hoping that we'll continue to grow that type of collaboration between the community and the physicians.
And how can Denise get in touch with you?
Well, I think that what we have, as you know, we have a Facebook page that Carla Vasquez controls and manages. We also have an email and a special web page called drqmd.com, and it's doctorqmd.com. And you can actually go there and you can learn about the work that we're doing at Mayo.
Denise, I hope you can get in touch with him that way.
Thank you. I really appreciate the information. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah,
Thank you, my dear.
Thanks, Denise. We'll go back to your calls in a moment at 549-2937. Your full name, of course, is Dr. Quinones Hinojosa. You were telling me before we started the show that when you were in medical school, people couldn't pronounce your name, so they just started calling you Dr. Q. So that's how that started. At first, you didn't like it, and then you kind of grew to like it.
I tell you, there were a couple of quick things. I remember when I was in medical school, I was sitting there. I was a second-year medical student in this Castle Society school, and the societies at Harvard are like the Harry Potter societies, and it's quite interesting.
Were you in Gryffindor?
I was actually
Hufflepuff or Slytherin?
Equivalent to Gryffindor.
Okay.
And it was Castle Society, and here we are, and I'm sitting at the table, and my friends say to me, Alfredo, if you want to be successful in this country, we recommend that you change your name.
Wow.
And it turns out that there was a history. Anthony Quinn, his real name was Antonio Quiñones. When he came to the United States, he changed his name to Anthony Quinn. So my friends recommended to me, you should change your name to Al Quinn.
Al Quinn. That's so boring.
It's amazing. I went home and I remember talking to my wife, Anna, and she says, well, that's not who you are. And I decided at that moment when I became a U.S. citizen that I was going to honor both my mom and my dad through those two last names. But eventually it became easy for people to pronounce Dr. Q, and that's how it sort of stuck, And I look now, living Hopkins, where everybody knew me as Dr. Q, coming here to Mayo. It's been a tremendous ability to be able to connect with people. When they can pronounce your name easily, it just is an easy connection that you make right away.
Sure. Now, let me ask you, too, and your answer a minute ago was so diplomatic, and I appreciate that. But there are certainly really contentious feelings on both sides of how to reform our immigration system. And, for example, those that support the candidacy of Donald Trump like the idea of putting up a wall on the southern border, which would have meant that you, with your talents as a brain surgeon, would have never been able to come to this country and contribute and save lives. I think that's why your story has resonated with so many people that are in favor of comprehensive immigration reform, which includes a path to citizenship for 11 million people, argue in favor of talents such as the ones you're contributing. So when you hear the nominee on the Republican side call Mexicans rapists and murderers that Mexico is sending their worst to this country, and I really wonder how that affects you as you talk about the things you've tried to do in this country. And then on the other hand, when people do come over illegally and don't make the same level of contribution you have and are sent back, deported, that's regarded in its own way too. So, I'd really love to hear more of your thoughts about that.
I tell you, as you can imagine, I remember I was in the hospital the day that those comments were made about immigrants, especially coming from Mexico. And I was coming out of the operating room and I was in the surgeon's lounge and I heard the comments and I just literally felt like someone was putting a dagger in my heart and just twisting it. Because I know that there are problems with immigration and I know that there are not so good people who come to this country, but I know that historically there's been always a tremendous amount of wonderful people. But we do have a problem, I got to tell you. So people know that when I hopped the fence, when I came to the United States, I actually hopped a fence that was about 18 feet tall. And I tell people that the problem with only thinking about building a fence is that it doesn't really solve the problem. As long as there's poverty, as long as there's inequality in other parts of the world, people will always gravitate towards wonderful countries like the United States where people, when they work hard, there's always a hope for a better life. And at the time, no matter how tall the border was between Mexico and the United States, I was determined and I had this sort of the fortitude and the energy to want to climb that fence. And I think that those obstacles, no matter how tall they were always going to be overcome by people who have that desire. So I don't think that that's the only solution. I think that's one solution that has been proposed. I believe that what we need to figure out is how can we enhance our neighbors? How can we make education better in other parts of the world, especially our neighbors down south in Latin America? How can we increase the economy so that way people don't have the desire or potentially the need to come to the United States, but at the same time, making this country grow as well. And I think that is the challenge. But as you know, medicine is changing. This is why we're doing a lot of these missions. Mayo recognizes that. I recognize Mayo as one of the leaders in the world moving that field forward through philanthropy, through, collaborations, intellectual, academic, medical throughout the world. And that's exactly what is going on economically as well around the world.
Let's go to Tom on the west side. Hi, Tom. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to point out for all those who want to worry about immigration that the real problem with immigration, as far as I can see, exists in Washington, in that, when people are starving or in fear of their life like they are in so many of these foreign countries, they just do not have the time to wait for the bureaucracy that is so bloated and so slow-moving that it takes forever for them to get permission to legally enter this country, and they have no other choice but to come illegally, just to save their own souls.
Thanks for the call, Tom. What do you think?
Well, I think that that resonates with the way I felt at the time. At least I didn't know any better, to be honest with you. That doesn't excuse the fact how I came to the United States, but there are people who are dying of hunger around the world, and I think that we, as an amazing nation, have to figure out a way to not only make our country continue to be better, but also help a lot of these people around the world.
549-2937. Bill down in Clay County. Hi, Bill. Good morning.
Good morning, Melissa. How you doing?
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to comment. We talk about immigrants that come to this country and the progress they make, and and don't get me wrong. You commend that because we want that in America. We want to bring talent to the country. But you look at people that do come here that are very successful. Generally, they'll end up working for a big organization, government agency, insurance company, hospitals industry somewhere, healthcare industry, where they have good HR programs, where they have good protections, where management is aware of the issues in terms of minority and immigrant hiring. But the average worker, especially in a state like Florida, goes into an environment where HR isn't that strong. It's a right-to-work environment, so you don't necessarily have those protections. So when immigrants come to this country, if you look at the entry-level positions in corporations, a lot of them are outsourced and things of that nature. So what I'm saying is the protections for a lot of people are great, and we see successes in that area, especially in the professional areas. But when we see people that come into the labor market on a general basis, they have a whole host of problems beside the fact of just getting into the door. And I'll take my answer off the air. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Once you came to this country, it wasn't as though it was an overnight success for you. There were a lot of years of hardship, I take it.
Well, yes, and people sometimes they know that I am a very upbeat person, that I have in some ways I focus on positive energy all the time. But the reality is that there were some dark moments in my life, some moments of depression, many moments of doubt, in which I questioned myself as to what was going to be my path, not only when I was an undergraduate at UC Berkeley, but even when I was at Harvard Medical School. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it or not. And as a resident, now as an attendant here, at Mayo, I remember leaving Hopkins and thinking, my gosh, we look up to Mayo as the number one healthcare organization in the world. So where you get the best care in the world. I wouldn't never leave for any other organization other than the Mayo Clinic. And I get here, and as you can imagine, I have a lot of people who have great expectations, not only my leaders, the CEO of our hospital, Dr. Farrugia, but I question myself, I got to be able to make a significant contribution to healthcare, to science, to connecting back to the community and utilize the Mayo enterprise, the Mayo sort of background and the Mayo principles of patient care comes first to be able to make those connections. And I question myself, but that also keeps me humble. That also keeps me on my feet and trying to improve myself every single day.
Well, when you're walking down the red carpet at the Academy Awards, we'll see if you're still humble. I'm just joking a little. Because in 2012, you wrote a memoir, Becoming Dr. Q, My Journey from Migrant Farm Worker to Brain Surgeon. Brad Pitt and his group of film producers have decided to make a movie of your life. Now, what can you share with us about that whole piece that has gotten a lot of attention as well? Where is that in the development process?
Well, as you know, Brad Pitt has been working very closely with Jeremy Kleiner, Didi Gardner, and then they partner for the first time in history with Disney Productions, with people like Sean Bailey, who's the president of the motion picture, Tendon Agenda, who is an amazingly talented vice president, executive vice president. They came together for the first time in history to make and produce this movie based on my life. They hire Matthew Lopez, who's an extraordinarily accomplished writer, to do the script, and he's been working there in the third version of the script. I think they're planning to finish the script by November or December and start shooting in 2017. I tell you, Melissa, the movie, I know that is based on my life, but the reality, what I think is going to happen is that it's going to be focused on the life of those around me and the sacrifices that many people have made, on the fact that day after day, many patients continue to put their lives on my hands. And I relate to that because at one point, as you know, in April 14, 1989, I had to put my life on the life of someone else's hands, as I was actually at the bottom of a liquefied petroleum gas tanker, a railroad tanker, fighting for my life and almost dead. I was taken out of this place. So I know what it's like to put that trust. And I think the movie, like I said, is going to be about those sacrifices that other people have made around me.
I think it'll be a riveting story. Do you have any little wish list of who you would like to play you in this movie? Do we know who will get that role? I'm sure it'll be a coveted role.
I know that there are a few very, very prominent people, Academy Award winners and nominee actors who want to play the role. I honestly do not know.
Can you give me the names? Come on. I gotta know.
We have, I think they're in the process. I am not authorized to mention any names at this point because they're all trying to bid for the role and things like that. But I promise you that as soon as I know, I will give you a call and send you an email.
Well, and how exciting that must be, but to have that incredible attention. But as you said, day to day, your mission is to eradicate brain tumors, and what a worthwhile mission that is.
It is a privilege. I see it as a gift that I've been given by my patients and their families and their loved ones, as a gift that Mayo has given me to be part of history. And I don't take it for granted. I mean, every single day, these same hands that used to pick tomatoes are now doing some of the most complex brain surgery. And I'm given that platform by my colleagues at Mayo, by my patients. And for that, I am eternally grateful.
Well, we're pleased to meet you and speak with you. Welcome to town. And thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Melissa. I look forward to many more times and many great things to happen here in Florida, in Jacksonville.
He is Dr. Alfredo Quinones Hinojosa, the new William J. and Charles H. Mayo Professor and Chairman of Neurologic Surgery at Mayo Clinic.